before we dive into the launch content, I want to share a concept with you that I believe is the number one reason why I've been so successful online. And I'm not sharing this with you to toot my own horn or anything like that. I'm sharing it with you because I truly believe that if you do not adopt this mindset, your chances of success are greatly reduced. And some of the things I've seen in the Facebook group kind of made me think about this. And then on top of that, I think it's just such a valuable lesson that I want to share with you guys on this training before we dive into the specifics of the launch, that I think it can be the difference between you being successful in the long term, whatever that looks like. We all have different definitions of what success is as far as our online business goes. But I think this might be the difference between you hitting it and not. I truly mean that. And so please listen up. So put in the chat, anyone have a guess as to what this could be? This one thing could be. I'm going to pull up the chat here. I got to scroll all the way down. Hold on. I see a lot of mindset. Okay. Yes, definitely. It's mindset related. I see your persistence, consistency, attitude, long-term view. You guys are, first of all, amazing because they're all true. All focus on value, goal setting. Literally all of these things are the case, are absolutely the case. You guys are dead on. But what I want to specifically share with you on this concept is something a little slightly different than what we've covered in the past. But all of those things that you just said, consistency, sticking with it, building trust with your list, all of those things are incredibly important. But those are sort of at, let's say, a 10,000 foot and beneath level. What I want to share with you is really kind of at a 30,000 foot view, because it's like all that stuff doesn't really matter if you don't get this concept. And it is mindset driven, but it's specific. It's not just mindset. Okay. So before I reveal to you what that is, there's a book by Robert Kiyosaki called Why A Students Work for C Students. And this book has probably done the best for crystallizing and communicating this concept the best of what I've seen. So let me explain what he's referring to, and then I'll sort of land the plane on specifically what I'm talking about with my concept. And which, by the way, Diana, I see that you've raised your hand a couple dozen times already. We'll get to your question as soon as possible, but let me go ahead and finish this presentation. So A students work for C students. So, and this is not to bash on the education system or whatever, but we could. But in formal education, you're rewarded for being as close to perfect as possible, right? So if you get a A+, typically means you got 100% of the questions right on a test or during a course or whatever it might be, right? And then A is usually like 90% or above. And then, B is, I think, like 80 to 90. And then C would be something like 70 to 80. It's been a little while. So the reason this concept exists, that why A students work for C students, is because the way the formal education system works is that we are taught you need to try to be as close to 100% right and not fail as much as possible. And so, and by the way, if you're an A student on here, first of all, smarter than I am, and this is not a knock on you, but it is something to consider. And even if you weren't an A student, this is still a concept that you should really wrap your head around. But A students typically have failed very little, right? They know that what they need to do to succeed. But what comes with that is a bit of a lack of risk at times because they're conditioned not to fail. Also, typically they're not going to necessarily go as far outside the box as maybe somebody else because they're very focused on hitting the grade. Now, C students, which by the way, I was sort of an A/B student. If I worked really hard, I could have been a straight A student, but I liked sports and girls and all of those stuff, so I was not going to ever focus that hard on it. But C students typically are used to failing, not failing like all the time. They're not like F students, but sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't, right? And that's kind of how they land in the middle of C students. And so a lot of times they're okay with failing and they're okay with taking more risks because their identity isn't necessarily attached to being right all the time or getting the right answer or having every answer every single time. And so this is the main difference between why A students work for C students. So what's the mindset I believe that is crucial, but that most, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I hope all of you adopt this, but most of the general population will never adopt this. And that is learning to fall in love with quote unquote failing. Now, I put failing in quotes because I don't actually believe in failing. I think that failing is simply getting one step closer to success. And I can say that having failed a lot and had a lot of success and realized that I was getting closer and closer every time I quote unquote failed. But, I've seen a lot of people get upset about, they can't get their funnel together. They're hitting the spam folder and all these things. I'm not minimizing those things and I'm not calling anybody out. I think this is a good lesson for everybody. But just realize that if you are going to become financially free with your online business, you are going to fail a lot. So you might as well fall in love with the idea of it. And when I mean fall in love, it's not like I love failing, right? But I'm so used to it at this point. It's so ingrained as part of the process of whenever I'm starting a business or starting a new venture or even just starting a new campaign, whatever it is, I know there's a very good chance that I'm going to fail, at least at first, right? There's very few times have I ever, even with all of my experience and knowledge to date, very rarely do I put up a campaign on day one and it's incredibly profitable. It just doesn't work that way because there's always so many variables at play, which tends to frustrate a lot of people as they're going through this process. They get frustrated with, little hiccups or hurdles they run into. And I get it. It is frustrating. But I'm just telling you right now that if you want to get to the place that I think a lot of you want to get to, that you kind of got to get used to it. And you want to know a secret about me? This is painfully true. Over the last 12 years of business, I have failed way more times than I've succeeded. You guys would not believe how many things I've tried that haven't worked. I mean, it's probably maybe a 10-to-1 ratio, truly. So I might have, if I tried 100 things, 90 of them didn't work and 10 of them did. But the truth is you only have to succeed every so often in order for it to greatly outweigh all of your losses. That's the truth. Anybody successful I know in this industry will tell you they've tried a lot of stuff. I know Kiala is a mentor of all of ours. I've had a lot of good conversations with him. He's tried a lot of things that didn't really work that well. That's okay. He just realized it's feedback, it's data, and he learns, and then we pivot. And so just know that you're going to fail a lot in this journey. And whether you fall in love with it or not, if you can at least accept it and just realize that it is part of the journey, I think that you're going to enjoy the journey a lot more. I can honestly say now that when I do fail, which still happens all the time, and I say fail, that my heart rate doesn't even increase one beat. It doesn't affect me at all because I've done it so much. I failed so much. But I also know, like I said, I'm just that much closer to my next success. And the successes will come because I won't give up until they come. And so this concept, I promise you, if you look at it from the long term, you will not fail in the long run. If you do what I tell you to do, and whether you're still trying to get your funnel together, and I know that the truth is this group has a kind of a myriad of experience at this point. Wherever you are in the journey, like, just be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Just realize that the hurdles, the failures, whatever you want to call them, are going to be plentiful. But I do promise you that if you stick with it, that what's on the other side of those failures and losses is so worth it. So worth it. So, that is mindset, but it's specifically, I want you to realize that failure is going to be a friend of yours. It just, us as a culture, look at failure as it's bad. And that's why a lot of times A students work for C students, because they don't want to fail. And, we need to be more like C students and be okay with failing and winning and failing and winning and doing a little bit of both.